Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Jim Jeffries rejects the suggestion that he hates women. Jim says, I don't believe I'm a misogynist, no, but that's probably what a misogynist would say. I'd rather this be part of an interview. This was with Rolling Stone, Australia, New Zealand, when people could actually hear me talk than read what I'm saying, or have some idiot in a basement recording a podcast read the words from a transcript from what Jim actually said. Why would we do that? That's dumb. Jim says, but look, you never watched a female comic go on stage about some guy they had sex with who had a little member who didn't make them finish? I've cleaned that sentence up 3 times and thought, how dare she, right? Now, if I were to make a joke about some women's genitalia being too large and me not finishing, I'm the worst man in the world, right? There's no difference between those two jokes. There just isn't. But do you believe that that woman, when she makes the joke, hates men? No, you don't think that she hates men. I don't. Women are half the population. I'm going to make jokes about them. I do self-deprecating comedy all the time where I make jokes about myself. Oh, I guess you could make an argument that I hate myself. He discusses his mother. She was a hard person to grow up with. She was physically very abusive and verbally a very abusive person. So sometimes I imagine I've had a chip on my shoulder about women. And it's probably been unfair for much of my life because my abuser was a 300-pound woman growing up. You know what I mean? So that's where this might come from. Now, if you were to hear a female comic in an interview say their father was abusive and belittled them and was physically abusive and all this type of stuff, and then they said something about how men are, you wouldn't begrudge them. You could see where that's coming from, but for some reason, there's no gray area with this, that you can't see where I'm coming from. Or why is this the one subject where you don't know that I'm joking? Jim, are there any jokes you do regret? He says, 1. In his 2016 Netflix special Freedom, he took aim at Jenny McCarthy and her son. Jefferies made a joke about whether or not the son was autistic or just Jenny McCarthy's son. Jim says, I was more doing it because she was an anti-vax person, and I thought what she was doing was very detrimental to the world, and I felt like she was a person who was more of a hindrance on the planet than anything, so I made a joke about her child. As a parent now, I'm deeply sorry I did that. I shouldn't have done that. Maria Bamford has a book out. She and her husband, the artist Scott Marvel Cassidy, have collaborated on Hodge Book and Laser Eyes, a graphic novel. It describes their relationship from the perspective of their dogs. Maria Bamford told the Express News, it's a beautiful sort of memorial to all the dogs that we've had over the course of our relationship and how they supported us. Max was a Marine, and then he got into private detective work, and that's why he did the perimeter of whatever room he was in. He'd go around the perimeter and make sure everything was safe. Then there were Arnold and Betty. They were a bonded pair, and they were just completely in love with each other. Maria says they've typically taken in older dogs, even though it's a setup for heartbreak. She says, they're going to pass away, but I prefer an older dog because I think that's what I am. I like to sit down. I like to eat. Sarah Silverman spoke to NPR about her early career. You may recall that Sarah did blackface at some point. Sarah said, I think early on there was more character in her early work, and certainly was purposely racist and all the ists because the character was an ignorant, arrogant person, and I felt like the truth would come through that. And at the time it worked. I can't imagine the level of ways in which that special does not hold up now. I think it would be hard to find any clip that works. It's very hardcore, and it does not hold up in today's world, but that's also what art is. You watch it in 2005, and it's a very different show than when you watch it in 2024 because you've changed, because the world has changed around us. I'm absolutely not proud of a lot of things in it looking back at it today, but I accept that that's what it is to be an artist who's been around a long time without the leeway of changing and growing. We're just defined by our singular moments. The world was bigger, and it was way more ignorant. It's funny because the character was this ignorant character that I could point to and go, she doesn't understand. She says all these horrible things, but it's okay because it's a character. And then really, I'm super liberal, blah, blah, blah. And then the irony was that the real me behind that was ignorant, but I have to accept that because that's me, and in order to grow, you have to accept that you can grow and change and be different than you were and not define yourself by your most ignorant moments. Kevin Nealon spoke to the Union about explaining his comedic delivery, and he said, it's kind of like describing how you look. From what I hear, people would say that my stand-up is very absurd and a lot of misdirection, and I did have friends tell me my comedy kind of sneaks up on you. When I'm on to the next little hunk I'm talking about, the laughter's just coming to them. It's very conversational. You know what makes me laugh? Are children. Children are so naive, and they do things that are just funny. I also like to go on the Daily Dose on the internet, and they have videos of animals or kids or anything. It's really funny. My laughter comes from normal people doing silly things. Chicago Sun-Times caught up with Langston Kerman. He graduated during the Great Recession and said, I ended up moving back to my mom's basement, which I vowed I would never do. Langston's now 37. It all felt dark to me. It was so antithetical to what I had envisioned in my head. I went to school, I got good grades, I followed the rules, and now I'm back in this life I didn't want. He decided to take a risk and pursue a dream. He signed up to do a comedy set at an open mic at Doc Ryan's. I went up there and I bombed for 5 minutes, but it was the right kind of bomb that a sick person like me can somehow translate as, you should go do this again, you should keep trying. So every week I'd go up to that open mic and bomb, and every week I felt a little bit better about the idea of pursuing this. He He has a podcast called My Mama Told Me, which showcases black conspiracy theories. For example, did Bill Cosby attempt to buy NBC? Does the black Illuminati exist? Are aircraft chemtrails infecting the public with chemical or biological agents? Kerman says, we take a lot of pride in neither of us being scared of any conversation. I think conspiracy theory is so important. I don't mean that we should all be conspiracy theorists, but I do think the conspiracy theory is sort of like the adult version of imagining and whimsy. It's fascinating to me to unpack where these ideas come from. In his Netflix special, he relays a time when a student made fun of his poetry, and Kerman said, I deeply resent that child. She's not a child anymore as a grown person. Should I ever come across her? I got smoke for her. Felipe Esparza said, I had great advice one time from Paul Rodriguez because I was worried. How is my comedy going to cross over? How's it going to transcend to other cultures, to other nationalities? And he told me, don't worry about any of that. If you're funny, the audience will cross over to you. It's not your job to cross over to them. Deadline caught up with Matt Berry. Matt, what were you doing before you were an actor? Barry says, I was in the London Dungeon. The London Dungeon is a London tourist attraction. It's a cross between a museum and a live performance kind of thing. During the course of the day, you'd be Jack the Ripper in the morning, and then you'd be a judge in the afternoon. At its height, you'd be doing something like 20 or 30 shows a day, and I loved it. It was fantastic fun, but the money was horrendous. So I'd do gigs in the evening, and that's how Dark Place happened. I was doing a gig, and Matt Holness and Richard Ayoade come up to me and said, we're doing a TV version of their fringe show Dark Place, and would like you to play the Spanish doctor. In my head, I was like, well, you're taking a risk there, because I've never done any TV or any comedy before. I haven't got a clue. But obviously, I didn't say that to them. I was like, yes, fine. Because I had nothing to lose and absolutely nothing going on at that point. So it was all to play for. I just said yes to everything and turned up to rehearsal, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I'd work after Dark Place. I didn't even know whether they would show the whole series. And I wasn't convinced it was actually going to air until the first night when it did. And no one believed I was going to be on TV. I told people, including my family, I said, I'm going to be on TV next month. It wasn't until the adverts came on, I was in one of those adverts, that everybody realized I wasn't full of stuff. Deadline asked about the origin of Toast of London, which is a fantastic show if you've never seen it. Barry said, I've always wanted to do it because I've been doing voiceovers for years and years with older actors, seeing how they behave and just finding it very, very funny. I knew there was something there, so I wrote all the ideas for it, his name and everything, and then spoke to Arthur Matthews because I wasn't successful enough for anyone to say, yeah, he's written this, let's make it into a series. I needed help in the form of Arthur, and Arthur's still the best at what he does. The character Toast, he's pompous, and he thinks that better things should be happening to him. There's a never-ending supply of things you can do to put him back in his place each time, but it's just fantastic to play because it's not set in any particular time. It has a foot in the 70s and in the modern day, so we're not limited to what we can do. A bit like Shadows. Those characters are in their own world, and they can do anything. Will there be more? He said, well, I did Toast of Tinseldown, the fourth series, where he went to Hollywood, and if you've seen that, you'll know what happened to him at the end. I don't know. I'm happy with it. I did everything with it that I wanted to do. Vulture has their list of the comedians you should know and will know. One of those comedians is Youngmi Meyer. Youngmi, if you were immortalized as a cartoon character, what would your outfit be? She said, I already wear a cartoon character outfit, a.k.a. the same outfit every day. Hot pink tennis skirt, mesh crop top, pink bra. It's giving dumb bitch cartoon character that F's up everything and thinks she's the main character, and she sort of is, but in a villain-adjacent way vibes. Worst show ever. Once, I did a show at a Jewish retirement home in upstate New York. I had to get a ride with the other comedians in the lineup. We got there, and the show took place in a fluorescently lit dining hall during their dinner at 4 p.m. When I got on stage, I started off by saying, so I'm a single mom, and this 90-year-old grandma in the back just yelled, boo, and did a double thumbs down. I don't really remember anything after that. I just slowly walked off stage. What could I even do to recover from a double thumbs down? Nothing. Writing process. I cannot write jokes while sitting down at a computer at 9 a.m. with a cup of coffee, no matter how hard I try. In the beginning, I would set aside writing jokes time. I just can't write jokes in that way. The only way I can write jokes is on stage. There was literally a 2-year period where I just stopped doing bits on stage and would just riff by going up with zero material. It was horrible, but now I feel like I can do bits and they're more dynamic and fluid. I think joke telling has to be sort of spontaneous for me. There's something about being pushed into a hairy situation that makes me funny in a way that I can't for the life of me pre-plan. Any financial hurdles? The biggest financial hurdle since becoming a comedian is becoming a comedian. I am so broke. OMG. I have to say, though, I was talking to my friend who has a normal 9-to-5 job that she hates, and she's also broke. We all have to get side hustles as Uber drivers and restaurant servers anyway, so why not do our dream jobs on the side, too? Best comedy advice was from my friend who told me to just post anything I thought was funny and not to be too precious about it or think about it too much. He also told me not to post or act on social media in a way to game the system and always keep true to what I thought was funny. Worst comedy advice I've ever received was when some old stand-up comedian told me to focus only on stand-up, never get into doing online content because it will kill my live performances. Although I understand where he's coming from, truth is, in this day and age, all comedians need to hone the skill of making content. It's a separate language. I mean, good is it? It doesn't translate to the stage and vice versa. All comedians need to learn both languages. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoyed the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you would like the program without commercial interruption, there's a link in the show notes to tell you how that works. And I'll see you tomorrow.